Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
So of the people you have in your company, how many are A players? And is it possible to take those people who aren't A players and transform them into A players by just changing seats? Spoiler alert, yes. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to discuss and deconstruct insights from top-performing entrepreneurs and industry experts. Every week, we uncover tested tactical solutions to solve your company's toughest hiring challenges. Today, our guest is Lynn Taylor. Lynn is the president and CEO of Taylor Protocols. Lynn is a business optimization expert in all areas of human capital, C-level performance, executive coaching, and organizational design. He's also the creator of Core Values Index, the only assessment to identify the unchanging human characteristic that dictates future job performance and aligns these with responsibilities of a given role for guaranteed success. Lynn stakes his company and his reputation around finding the right person for the right mission. Lynn has performed this more than 200 times successfully for turn-on projects over the past 20 years. Lynn, I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio Show.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So things we're going to cover today. We're going to cover how many A and B players you would need to produce 100% of the productivity you generate now. We're also going to talk about if everyone in the company were A and B players, what would that capacity look like? And solutions to transform or hire top performers. So let's start with the question on how many people at a company are typically A players?
We did a study of 60,000 people in 367 job positions, 133 companies. And people like Merrill Lynch and Citibank and Alcoa and many other name brand household name companies like Weyerhaeuser and Boeing. And what we found is that the about 7% of the people in all of these companies, by their estimate, in those positions are A players, about 15% B players, and a whopping 53% are C players, and the balance, almost a third of the people, are D performers.
Okay, so these are all primarily name brand companies, right?
Say it again?
These tend to be larger name brand type companies, right?
No, I gave you the name brand type companies. It came from mostly from smaller companies.
Oh, really?
In the 10 to $200 million range.
Okay, got it. I would imagine, though, for companies that are startups, you don't really have that problem, especially since it's really crucial that that company come up to speed as quickly as possible. So they really need to hire A players, right?
Yes, it's more critical. The smaller the business, the more critical it is to have only right people. And we've done a lot of what we call mom and pop startups, and then mid-range from the 5 to 30 million has been the bulk of our work in our turnaround work. And
so does that number still hold true?
Had 45% per quarter turnover of his drivers, and 160% turnover a year. And we looked at his people and rated them A, B, C, D, and we found that he only had out of his 40 drivers that we started with, he only had about 5% were A players.
Wow.
And that's typical everywhere, which also means, Rick, that we usually have 3 times as many people as we need if we had only A and B players in every seat.
Now we talked on the phone, and you kind of ran me through your kind of 80-20 rule. Run me through that, if you would.
Well, that's the Wilfredo Pareto principle that 20% of the people produce 80% of the value, and that means that 80% of the people in any given job are producing the remaining 20%. So the farther a person gets away from performance of the A players, we've also proven that the A players all have core value natures that are very similar for a balance of the four critical energies. And the C and D and players look almost nothing like the A players.
Got it.
And we've proven that almost always there are nobody like the A players in C and D positions. Only some in the B positions.
Got it. All right. So if you're trying to stack your company with A and B players, basically, then the issue has to come down to probably just making wrong hiring decisions or not making hiring decisions that are effective, right?
That's exactly right. They're done subjectively. I like the person. They looked me in the eye, had a good handshake, talked well, has good experience, has a resume, has references, and the references gave me good glowing, and that's the way hiring has been done. And
he likes baseball, and I like
magazine, baseball. 85% of the time, within 3 weeks, both the employer and the employee are somewhat or significantly dissatisfied with the hire. So it's endemic. They've been there forever. And we tend to ignore it because we don't have a better way. At least we didn't until we had the core values index and my medical grade algorithms to put a right person in the right seat.
You know, it's interesting. As I read a statistic not too long ago where they were saying that an unstructured interview, which is what 99% of the companies out there do, they just kind of do what you just explained, which is an unstructured interview, tend to produce a 6% chance of making the right hire.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Barry Deutsch has done over 100,000 placements over the years and has written several books. And he says adamantly, we have found that there is zero correlation between the performance of a person in the interview and their performance on the job. So yes, the success rate is 6 to 10%. If people tell themselves the truth about getting a new A player, but it's really it's not the interview that does it. That's just the statistical variety that if one out of 10 or so people becomes an A player. That's just statistics, not the quality of the interviewing.
So we're chalking it up to luck here.
Yeah, it really is a problem that needed to be solved.
Okay, now you
at Quebec Marine, they had 56 people on the manufacturing floor, and they were producing $7 million of boats a year, and losing $1 million a year doing that. We did an ABCD rating, did a core value index of all their players. Because they were in such a stark situation, we had to do a reduction. We reduced the plant to 35 people. And with 35 people and just one or two new hires over the course of that first year, we went from $7 million to a $23 million annualized pace. So now the company was making better than industry average. They were making about 15% pre-tax profit. On building boats, which typically create about a 3% profit.
Okay, so then that kind of leads us into our next point, which is actually taking the people that you do have and kind of transforming them into an A player. That can be done, correct?
Well, you can't transform somebody who is wired by nature to be a different kind of energy. See, our work is, Dr. David Mashburn says that reason we succeed is because we are uncovering and we've learned how to do a job description. So we uncover the human energy needed in the actual tasks of the job.
Okay. What
balance of the four energies. And then we have the CVI, which gets the balance of the four energies in a given individual. And when you match energy needed to energy that exists in a person, you're getting a physics kind of match for the first time. It's a scientific match, as opposed to the subjective human kind of disappointing process we go through trying to hire new people.
Okay. So, I mean, you've got somebody who's got kind of the right attitude, and they fit in culturally, they kind of check off all those boxes, but they're not really performing in their role. Those are the people that you want to kind of focus in on, right?
Yes, and that's how I turned around over 200 companies. As you were saying, it would be at Pasquire Paneling. They had a 110-year-old business, averaging somewhere between 100 and 200,000 a year of profit on 10 million in sales. Very, very small profitability. They thought they had a maximum 16% gross margin as the cost of the product to the customer versus the cost of the labor and materials. And we went through that. They had 376 people in their plant. And we went through and did a top performer profile for their supervisors, their leads, their line, their forklift drivers, their plant manager, the assistant manager, etc. All the machine operators, 15 different kinds of machine operators. And we reduced the number of people in the plant from 374 to 272.
Okay.
And we did 13 million that year instead of 11 million. And our margins, our cost of labor went from 49% to 19%. And our margins went to 45% instead of the 16%.
Got it.
And so they made more money in profit than they had in the previous 30 years.
Got it. Okay, well, I get that, but but turning around kind of some of the employees that you already have there, how do you do that? Or, I mean, is that possible?
Thank you for reminding me of that. So,
yeah.
Of those 272 people, we shifted about 40 of the people around where their core value nature of the CVI was what was needed in the work of the job. So we moved several machine operators back into line work. We moved one of them up to be a manager. We moved a manager back to becoming a supervisor, manager back to becoming a machine operator. And it was all based upon looking at the core value energy of the individual, saying, well, they're a really strong employee, they're really reliable, they seem to work hard, they just don't, they're not as effective at where they are. Let's move them where they fit better, and that was really the secret.
See, I like that. I like the fact that, and it shows a really good message to your employees, the ones who are performing too, that you've got the foresight to actually look at what's going on and fix the issue rather than just getting rid of people and trying to rehire.
Yes, in fact, we only terminated even one employee in 10% of our companies that were just really in desperate shape. All of the rest we turned around by playing musical chairs, not playing, but scientifically putting people in the right seat and keeping all the good quality human beings that were not in the right seat. Therefore, were not A and B performers.
All right, so I like that term. We're going to coin that. Scientific musical chairs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so why is it important to shift them to another seat as opposed to letting them go, from what you've seen?
Well, in the first place, the reason they're probably still there, even though there are weak performers, because people like them. They get along well. They show up on time. They don't smell bad. They don't have a drug and alcohol problem, whatever.
They don't bite people.
So that's important. But the most important thing is that they know the company. They like the company. They feel at home in the company. They feel loyalty there, and they know the products. They know the systems and processes. So it's very, very costly to fire somebody and hire a new person and train them and get them up to speed. It takes a year or two before people really settle into their job. If you have the wrong people in the wrong seat, it's just an arduous task.
And you run the risk of making a bad hire too.
They pick up the pace very quickly, and if it's an existing employee in the company, then they're very thankful to still have their job and be able to work in the company, and they catch up even if we put them in a seat that they've never trained for, they don't have any experience in. Within a matter of just a few weeks, what we call overnight, they become an A or B player. Incredibly valuable. Instead of Rick, the passion here is that the Industrial Revolution and that has created this 80-20 principle has really created a stigma that says if you are a low performer, it means you are a low caliber human being.
Yeah. That is true.
And I will browbeat you. I will challenge you. I will criticize you for not being smart, for not doing what you're told, for not following their instructions, and send you to courses and classwork, and none of it helps. You need to put a right person in a right seat, and when you do, suddenly the D performer that everybody thought was a D caliber human being is now an A or B performer and one of the top performers in the company.
See, that's
what I live to do, is to bring forward the highest potential of every person and put them where they can make their best contribution.
So that's a really outstanding form of kind of restructuring the business.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the only knowledgeable way to restructure a business. It is. That's why we call it a human capital audit of a position or of the entire company.
Got it. We're talking to Lynn Taylor, the president and CEO of Taylor Protocols. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about how to actually bring them to transformation and where to start in order to transform what you have.
You're listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, giving you access to recruiting techniques that will help you hire key talent to build your company towards real success. Rick is a recruiting executive and entrepreneur who's been successfully recruiting in the aggressive Silicon Valley technology landscape for the past 2 decades. After a very successful stint at Apogee, he founded Stride Search in 2012. Based on a lean efficiency model, Stride has uniquely positioned itself as a leader in retained search for the most critical talent hires within a small organization. Whether you're a startup executive or recruiting professional, by listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, you will walk away with skills to help you attract and hire great talent. Now back to Higher Power with Rick Girard.
Welcome back to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and our guest today is Lynn Taylor, the president and CEO of Taylor Protocols. So we just discussed a little bit about transforming a D player to an A player. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how to actually do it. So, Lynn, if everyone in the company, you posed this question to me, which was really interesting to me. If everyone in the company were A or B players, what would be the capacity? And I didn't want you to get into that when we talked because I thought that was a really interesting question. So run through that for me, if you would.
That was the basis of my turnaround work was to rate everybody in every position as an A, B, C, or D performer in that company in that position. And we proved that the Wilfredo Pareto principle was there. 20% of the people produce 80% of the value. So it was just a simple, logical step then to say, well, let's move some people out of the sales position where they're D performers and move them into customer service or move them across the line into a lead on the manufacturing side and vice versa. Let's take a inside salesperson and put them out in the field. Let's take a customer service person and put them into inside sales. We did this at Alcoa.
Okay.
Had 75 people and a $5 billion business, making about 3% net profit and growing at 1.5% a year. And in that year, we reduced from 75 people, and they kept all the people, but they sent them out to plants and other things. But the sales and the customer service and the marketing team that was at the headquarters was reduced from 75 people to 38. And those 38 people now drove the company at an 8% annual growth. 8% on $5 billion is a lot of money. $400 million of increased sales a year, and we did it with the fewer people, so our cost of overhead was reduced. They moved to a 9 and then a 12% net profit. Bob Parks, the president there, said that we produced more benefit in his 18 months after we did our work than he had in his previous 35 years for Alcoa.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now, so most of our audience are primarily smaller companies, entrepreneurs. We have a lot of tech-focused companies. So, I would imagine having one person that's not working out. So, how do they effectively do a human capital analysis or analyze that person to figure out where they're going to fit best?
It's a matter of looking at what the company does, what their product is, their services are, and how they price it, and where the labor needs to go, and who's doing the selling. And so those are some simple questions I ask. I just come in, staying ignorant until I understand. That's what we call good wisdom.
Sure.
And so I would just ask questions like, well, so who does the selling here? So in entrepreneurial companies, the lead technician is often also the best salesperson, the only one he or she trusts to go out and do the selling. And then they get some support people and trying to take off of the either technical or sales entrepreneur. It's usually on one side or the other, technical or sales. Take everything off of their plate that they shouldn't be doing, that keeps them from making their best contribution. Without the top performer profile, we've proven that most companies operate at the best at 30% human capital efficiency.
Okay.
Efficiency is having only A and B performers in a given job, in a given job position. And that's...
So having only A and B performers is only going to give you about 30% efficiency?
It means you have more than 3 times the number of people you need, even if you only have 10 people.
Okay.
And we've just shown that is true everywhere. Now, helping them hire one new top performer changes the mix pretty fast, and then it is playing the musical chairs, moving responsibilities around and moving people around. That's how we save the 200 plus companies.
Okay, so where does one start, right? So it seems to me you've got an analysis that you have to do, but I think before you analyze your person, you kind of really need to know what your job descriptions are, right? Or what you have available?
Absolutely. We start with what systems and processes are being used in sales. So we find out what they use, and then we find out how long they worked, and then what we do is we go down to detail and we develop a new kind of job description that looks at what is the contribution this person is going to make to the company. The benefit to the company has nothing to do with the person. It's the financial justification. What is the thing they're going to produce that is worth money for us and worth enough money that we can pay them a salary to produce that for us?
Okay, now...
And then we prioritize responsibilities and look at only those responsibilities, staying in that position based upon the contribution that's being created. And then we look at if they're going to do all of those responsibilities, what are they doing most of the day? Where are they sitting, and what is the work that they're doing, the kind of tasks that they're doing all day long, the biggest part of the day, because we want the human energy in the individual to be naturally expressed through the tasks of the job. If you don't do that, Rick, you will fail. There is no other way to look at it. You need to match the human energy in a person and see that how that flows through the actual tasks of the job, about the same balance of the capacities the person has are the same balance of human energies needed in the work of a given job. So we do that job description, and then we use the CBI to paint a picture of the ideal person for that job. And then we make taking the CBI the first step in the hiring process. We don't allow our clients. We encourage them never to interview somebody if they don't get a high recommendation by our system.
Got it. So, in essence, what you're looking at is, for somebody who's a new hire, you want to create the job description first. But if you're taking somebody who's already in the company, right, essentially you're doing the reverse. You're saying, well, we've got a person, we're running them through our CBI test to figure out what motivates them and where they're going to thrive, and then you're creating a role around that person?
Yeah, it's what we call a facilitator role.
Sure.
We can do it. We can do it with a brand new position, or we can do it with a team of 3 people and doing the same work, or we can do it with 1,000 people. And once you get over 20 people, it's all statistical. Up to about 10, you don't get enough information to do a statistical evaluation. But the process is the same. We drill down to make sure we understand exactly what we're trying to pay a person to do, and how much of that do they need to create, what's the nature of the contribution, and how does it turn into money, how much money does it turn into.
Okay. So run me through how CVI works, if you could. I mean, because this is essentially an analytics tool or a behavioral analysis tool or something to that. It's similar to like DISC or predictive index or something like that, right?
Well, it would be in the genre of human assessment, but that's the only place where we're like everyone else.
Okay.
I love it. Instruments, Rick, are personality profiles, and they go after them by asking questions, giving a context and explanation, and then having them choose from 3 or 4 different behaviors that they would exhibit. And all of that causes a person to simply paint a picture that they want to be true of themselves and they believe can be true of themselves. But it makes them only about 70 to 75% repeat score reliable.
Got it.
Meaning that if you have them take it again at home or a different time or when they've just had a divorce or something, they will show up completely differently. And we
based on their emotion or what's happening in their life.
97% repeat score. We're measuring what Maslow called the innate, essentially unchanging nature of a person for the first time, and we know it's comprised of 4 discrete human energies, and we know how to derive a capacity, a variance in that, and measurable. So it's quantitative and tightly defined.
Got it. All right, so you're trying to get to the core of who somebody is as opposed to what feelings they might have at a particular time based on whatever life experiences they might be having at the time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the life experiences are with our system.
Okay.
We're completely free of that. There is no confusion and no place for a person to hide. It's a forced choice instrument that takes less than 10 minutes to take. The others take 45 minutes to 3 hours and require a heavy interpretation, and then it's all wrong. It's all about the adapted behavioral self as opposed to the essential human being that you are.
Got it.
Our instrument and in my book Choices are being called the foundation of the psychology of being that Maslow pointed to some 70 years ago. And the importance of this is that we learn who you are from birth and therefore who you are meant to be, and therefore where you fit best, where if we put you in a given situation, you will find it to be your place of highest and best contribution, the place that will make you feel fulfilled and satisfied. So all this talk we've been doing about people, Rick, and a little callously with numbers, is exactly the opposite. Our work is to lift people into their place of highest and best contribution, which makes them feel satisfied and fulfilled, and for the company engaged and productive. And so it's a win-win for businesses and individuals.
Which is huge this day and age, especially when Gallup polls show that 68% of the American workforce are disengaged and disenchanted with their current roles.
Yeah, we actually believe it's much higher. HR Magazine did a study and said that 75% of all employees are looking for a job now, and it said that 85% are dissatisfied with the job they get within 3 weeks. We think there are only about 3 or 4% of the people who are really in the right seat. Another 15% or so are getting close to that and have a pretty good day where 75 or 80% match to who they are. And the rest of the people should never have interviewed for a job, and they should never have been interviewed for a given job that they got in a company.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So what are some of the results that you guys get with CVI?
Oh, it's been wonderful, extraordinary. At Night Transport, we solved his huge turnover. He had only 17 trucks on the road, and he owned 27 trucks, but he had bad engineers, bad mechanics working on his trucks. So we did top performer profiles for the sales position, the customer service position, the dispatch position, all of the drivers, and we had short haul, mid haul, long haul. We had a different top performer profile for all 3 kinds of drivers,
and
for their mechanics. And we took them from a $3 million business about ready to lose his home and his car and his house and eventually his spouse. We took him to $7 million in the first year and a half, and we took him to $16 million within 3 years. $3 million to $16 million, and at $16 million he's making 15% pre-tax profit, all by putting right people in right seats.
And what's his retention and
the
engagement
retention
rate?
Is he went from that 170% kind of turnover per year to about a 20% turnover, and the market, by the way, in that time has gotten much more competitive and much worse, where all the other trucking companies are having 75 or 80% turnover a year. He is now in below 20% turnover.
That's outstanding. So, unfortunately, we're running close to being just out of time. Lynn, I want to thank you for your time investment today, and thank you for being on the Higher Power Radio Show.
It's our pleasure, Rick. I really appreciate it. You're doing great work, and look forward to a long association with you.
Oh, thank you.
To encourage that, anybody who wants to take the core value index free of cost, is it okay if they just call you, Rick, and we'll give you a bunch of links so you can send out to your audience?
Yeah, we can do that. And actually, if somebody would like to reach out to you directly, how do they reach you? And they could probably just mention that they've heard you on Higher Power Radio Show, and you could follow up that way as well?
That's all they need to do. Say
Perfect.
Higher Power, and you can call Taylor Protocols. The number is 206-283-8144. Or you can send an email to Christine, Chrisistine, at Taylor Protocols. That's 3 O's and an S in Protocols.
And it's Taylor.
And we'll send you a free link, and look forward to having a chat after you do that, if you like.
Absolutely. And what's your website address, or how do they reach you on the web?
It's TaylorProtocols.com.
Okay, excellent. So I want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Power. A quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts, our producers, Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and Kim Iverson. To listen to this show and any past episodes, you can check us out on Higher, that's HIRE, Power, POWER, radio, RADIO.com, or Higher Power Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook at Higher Power Radio Show, or you can follow me on Twitter at Rick_Girard. We have another great show lined up for you guys next week. It'll be our 1-year anniversary, and we're bringing back our very first guest, Tom Chaparro, who's the Executive Vice President of the Newport Group. Looking forward to having him. It's going to be fun. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard on OC Talk Radio.